Huh? Better than yesterday. Is everybody here? Randy, Richard. You can begin with a nice talk. Although we have listened to this many times, the Satipatthana, but I will still go through it, run through it. The four foundations of mindfulness. So that you can remember it better and it goes into your practice. Yesterday I was talking about the mindfulness. What is mindfulness as an experience? How it develops and what becomes of it in Vipassana practice. Everything boils down to the mindfulness. But depending on how you cultivate it, it becomes different things. In Vipassana, we cultivate the mindfulness when it's strong and concentrated, it becomes concentration. When it becomes sharp and penetrative, it becomes insight. The fly wants to listen to the Dhamma talk. Today we go to more to the objects of the practice and the ways of handling it. What to do, what not to do, how to do, what to watch, what not to watch, and so on. The body foundation of mindfulness is starting point, and we get to know these things while we are dealing with these basic objects. I remember when I first went to Burma to practice many years ago. In the golden age of Mahasi Sadhus, when he was still alive. So I tried my best to practice according to the instructions. And being educated in the British system of education, Malaysia was under the British. You learn to question why. So as he gave the instructions, I questioned why. Of course, being Asians, we know better. We don't question the master. We listen and we follow. And that's what I did. Don't distract me. I tell people usually that if I can practice meditation, all of you can practice meditation. Yeah. Because I'm not a very intelligent type. Although I'm not altogether stupid. So I listen, I try to understand, I try to practice. Fortunately for me, the advantage after thinking over how is it I still end up as a meditation teacher? Somebody else should be sitting here, I think. It's because I had good teachers. And that's my good karma for the past merits. I met with good teachers. They give me the right instructions, I follow and get the results. Although I don't just follow, I also ask why. You know? Usually, traditionally, you don't ask why. Because you're just a beginner. That's the traditional authoritative type of education. Later in the West, they have the other type of education, where the teacher is put himself on par with the students. It's more of a sharing than a teaching. But eventually, after practicing, and they see you are sincere, they tell you why. So after some period of learning from them and from others, because sometimes we have interviews not as one person, but as a group. And you see the interviews and how they teach and the advice they give. you begin to understand why. Then we use our common sense. And over a period of time, we can understand there is a reason behind the advice you give them, they give you. And from there, in one of the first little books on Vipassana that I wrote, there's a chapter called Priority of Objects. What to watch and why. Now the basic practice we do, the first is the Kayanupassana, the body foundation of mindfulness. And as we know, it is the beginning point of the practice in Satipatthana in our tradition and in many traditions. Because the body, which is basically materiality, rupa, is the grossest of all the foundations, the grossest of all the ultimate realities. And so it is, as such, it is also easier to follow. It tends to be slower. And for beginner, it is easier to be mindful of and to follow. There's a good reason. You can start with some difficult object, and you start with something that is easier. As in the sitting meditation we guided, there are few objects that you have to handle. First is a rising, falling. Yes? You know what is rising, falling? You put your hand on the abdomen and you feel the sensations that occur as a process, going out, coming in, going out, coming in, or expanding, contracting. That's a rising, falling. The alternative rising, falling, sometimes the in and out breath is being used. Although in the Mahasi system, they encourage mostly the rising, falling. In other traditions, the in and out can be more common, which is anapanasati. The other objects are the sitting, touching, which is basically the sitting and touching sensations of the body. Sitting, touching, sitting, touching. Third is the pain when it arises. Fourth is the hearing of the sound. Hearing, hearing, hearing. Fifth is the thinking, 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 which is restlessness. The fifth 6 is the sleepy, 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 sleepy. Slow and torpor. These are mental states. These are the 6 objects yogi begins with. Yeah. Only 6. You learn in school is ABC. 26 alphabets. Yes, we need 6 to be easier. Now you remember again what I told you yesterday. Idea is first to arouse mindfulness. The idea is to develop mindfulness first. When you arouse mindfulness, then you make it continuous by following the object continuously, one after another, with mindfulness. Yeah? If you can do that, that means the mindfulness is developed and concentration likewise developed. Third, when you follow the object, you don't just follow. The important point is to observe, take notice of the sensations that make up the process. Yeah? Understand? See, mindful, follow, observe sensations, right? This brings it to one first principle. It involves the priority of objects. That is, the priority of objects comes into play. What do you watch? First object, the most suitable object for the build-up of mindfulness. You take this object and you follow it, observe it. This object would become the main object. We call the primary object. Yeah? This one. We choose rising and falling because it's a suitable object. Once I asked my teacher, my first Vipassana teacher, Uzawana, why do you watch rising and falling, not in and out breath? Answers, because Nama Rupa, mind and matter, is very clear. That means the material phenomena and the mind of mental phenomena, that which observes it, follows it, is much clearer. Then if you watch the in and out breath, this is fine. When the breath becomes fine, the mind also becomes very fine. So for most people, beginners nowadays, rising falling is a good object. Of course, people say, well, the Buddha used the in and out breath. True, but we are not Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. There are other reasons. Yeah. Which pertains to us. You know, the Indians have a long, curved nose, you know. So David here has also a long and curved nose. That's why he looks like an Indian. Yeah. Now, when they breathe in and out, the wind touches on this nostril, sensitive. Moreover, they are very long mustache here. So the mustache is quite sensitive, correct? Well, you're Chinese, the nose is quite flat, stubby. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's true. Anyway, the fact is the sensation of the rising, falling is more grosser than the in and out breath sensation. And because of that, it is a suitable object for develop vipassana. Because the three characteristics, the relationship between the mind and matter, is more clearly discernible in the rising and falling. I find this to be true because I've been teaching, you know. Like in the West, often they use in and out, sometimes they're using it for a long time because they've practiced this before. And as I've learned from Sadhu, sometimes because of that, it allows them to do it. And from what I get, the results in vipassana is better. The in and out breath seems to be more conducive to samatha meditation. It's the nature and behavior of the object, the mind. So beginners, they may find it strange, difficult, because we are not usually normally watching the abdomen. Unless you do Qigong or something like that, where you watch your tongue, or sometimes. For example, the one man, he could watch his rising falling, no problem. Say, wonderful. You could watch your rising falling, no problem. And he asked me, do you know why? And no, please tell me. And he says, you know, I've always had a problem with gastric. No, I have always a problem with stomach. Sometimes I have no choice. I get so much pain so that I have to watch the stomach and try to keep calm so that I don't get disturbed by it. So automatically develop the ability to watch the rising falling. When you go into the rising falling, no problem at all. For other people, it can be more difficult. Like one old man in Ipoh. I don't have rising falling. Really? True. Because he's so skinny. Like what the Buddha described during his asceticism, when you touch his stomach, you touch his spine. When you touch his spine, you touch his stomach. So I went and touched his stomach. Really, I touched his spine. You know, he was so thin, but he was very persevering. In such cases, it's true. Anyway, but in most cases, you cannot feel it. You put your hands on the abdomen. And the abdomen is above the navel, sometimes around the diaphragm area, around here. When you breathe, it's too low, it's not suitable. The tissues are a bit taut. tend to be tight. It doesn't move so freely. You put it upwards, no? Yeah, around here. It goes like that, rising, falling, rising, falling. It is easier. At the beginning, you use your palms and you can feel it better. And after a while, you get used to it. You don't have to use your palm. In the beginning, I ask people to put their hands, and you're tired, you put other hands. Sometimes you use the HOB method. You know, HOB is called hands on belly method. Sometimes you hold it like that. Because of the contact and the sensitivity of the palms, you can follow it better and you can follow it longer. Because the breath, after a while, when you calm down, it becomes more and more soft and more subtle. You don't are not so sensitive yet. When you try to follow it, it becomes finer and finer, and finally you don't feel anything. Then you have no choice but to go back to sweeping the awareness of the body and watch the sitting and touching. Remember, the idea is to develop mindfulness, continuity, and when it's continuous, then you can put in the observation. From the beginning to the end of the rise, from the end to the beginning of the fall to the end of the fall. You follow it carefully, and you follow it carefully with mindfulness. You notice that different sensations. At the beginning is very rough. You know it's long, and you know it's short. You know? And as you go further, you notice that different types of rising and different types of falling. And if you go further, you try to observe within the rising, there are changes. Within the falling, there are changes. Rising, falling, no? As your mindfulness becomes sharper, you can follow it better, that you notice. Try to watch it moment to moment. This may take some time. Then you can follow well, and you can follow it by stages. Some teachers try to encourage that by making more notings. Rising, falling. And then if it goes slowly, if it's fast, then you only one rising, falling. But if your mindfulness is sharp and keen, even though it's not so long and it's quite fast, you can see it in stages or as a process. This brings us to one important point. You follow the object, you flow with the object, you don't hold on to the object. Yeah? Because the we are having doing vipassana, and it's a vipassana object, which means it is a process. You don't hold on to the process, you flow with the process. Yeah. Samatha, you hold on to the object. Pure concentration meditation. You chant Buddha, all the time. Hold on, the mind, try to fix the mind to the object. So you hit a nail to the wood and you're stuck there. Doesn't move from there. Because the object is concept, stationary. Whereas Vipassana, no. Vipassana object is a process. And the process can go ways that you don't expect. Yeah. You can go rising, falling, then you go shorter, you go faster, and you go slower. And after that, you just go ding. Sometimes it's just a point, pop. So you expect it to go rising, falling. then you're not doing it properly. You're doing it like a samatha object, concentration object. Yeah. Vipassana object comes with change, from general change to moment change. Moment to moment change is something spontaneous when your mind is very developed. But you build up to there by watching the more conventional changes, sharper and sharper. Just the rising falling. Okay? Uh, we're not going to talk about the in and out breath because, yeah, with all this, we should be. You can follow rising falling. You follow in and out breath? Really? No, you follow rising falling. Belong to our club. Ah, ah. We are not going into the breath system. The breath system follows the same principle, mindful, follow, observe. Except that here you don't try to follow it as a samatha object. Follow it as a vipassana object, which means you have to watch it as a process of sensations. In the process of many sensations. We go to the next object. The sitting and touching. Generally, in the beginning, we are taught that when you cannot get a rising and falling, go to the sitting and touching object. That means you cannot keep the mind without an object. Sitting or rising, falling, touching, rising, falling, touching. If it doesn't stop, you carry on with the rising. And if it stops for a longer time, then you watch the touch points more. Touching, 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 sitting, touching, touching, touching. Yes? Which means that in the beginning, the primary object is rising, falling. When you cannot follow your rising, falling, or it's not there, you go to sitting, touching for a while. And when the rising, falling returns, you return to rising, falling as your primary object. So the sitting, touching belongs to what we call the secondary object. Yeah? Highway number 1, roadblock, you go to deviation. Highway, side road number 2, when you come back to highway number 1. Okay? Same thing, same principle. Because if there are no rising, falling, and you find so difficult to watch rising, falling, automatically thinking starts coming out. The moment you lose your mindfulness, you can find either two things happen. Either you start thinking and getting restless, or you start getting bored, feeling sleepy. Which means that your mindfulness is aging out. During my earlier days, when I was in Burma and so on, most people can get a rising falling. But when I started teaching in Malaysia, they said they find it difficult. They're not used to watching rising falling, and they cannot watch the rising falling, and whatever reasons they be, they find difficult. So the alternative is sitting touching. But the sitting touching object has not been really so well expounded. What do you mean by sitting and touching object? I get a few answers. For me, it's not so much of a problem. I could get sitting touching. See, I can feel the body sitting, touching, the buttocks touching, hands touching, sitting, touching, sitting, touching. After a while, the rising. For me, it is not a great problem because I can get rising falling very well. But for those who can't, that's what happens. So you have to watch sitting, touching, but it's not well expounded what you mean by sitting, touching. So I begin to question what do you mean by sitting, touching. Then I got the answer. Where? From the preliminary instructions by Mahasi Sayadaw himself. Right from the start. But you know, I noticed that. He says that in the sitting posture, you need a lot of mind-body processes to maintain it. Yeah? When you talk body processes, you talk of bodily sensations. So that's where I got the point. It is also the basic point of Kayanupassana. I found out that the key to Kayanupassana, body formation mindfulness, is sensitivity to bodily sensations. You can sensitive to bodily sensations. Any part of the body can find the object. In and out breath is a bodily sensation. Rising, falling is a bodily sensation. Right step, left step are bodily sensations. How can you say there's nothing to watch? There's something to watch. There's always something to watch. The only time you cannot really get the bodily sensation is you are numb. And you don't have bodily sensation. No, pinch, you see very bodily pinch. Of course, you have bodily sensations. The body is not dead. But because I'm not so used to watching bodily sensations, it's as if they don't know. Once a friend told me, just when I started going to Europe, he says, here we people don't feel bodily sensations. Is it true? Okay, huh? Karen, is it true? Yeah, she's not saying it's true. Who are you, Asians? Do you have bodily sensation? Of course, why? Because we are Asians. There's no good reason to this question. Why? One reason I think is because they think too much. They're always in the head. Because the education is such from young, they were taught to think. No, could be one of the reasons. I always tell this story. When I was in Germany, I was teaching meditation. I told them about this thing. Then during interview, he came to me, Bhante, You talk of people who don't have bodily sensations. I am one of those people. And you know why? He's a professor in informatics. You know, this computer experts, they always the mind. It was so bad that one day he was walking down the steps, he fell down on the steps, he rolled down. Because he don't feel like so much. After that, no problem. His whole body was pain. But he has to leave the retreat to go to the hospital. So sad. It's just a matter of making the mind watch the bodily sensations. Sadhu Pandita always gives the example, you hold your hand, fist tightly, and what do you feel? You feel tension, you feel heat, you feel pain, and those are the bodily sensations. You just watch those. Mindful, keep your mind to this fist, and what do you feel? What do you notice? All those sensations. And those are the bodily sensations. The same when you swim awareness to the body. There was another person, also a German. He could meditate, he could concentrate, he's been practicing for some years. But he couldn't go to Vipassana. He feels some sensations here and there. He could. He said, I like meditation. Why? Because he's always going to samadhi, concentration. But he knows the importance of Vipassana, and so I make him, force him to watch all the different types of sensations. In one retreat, not enough. In the second retreat, he went very fast. Once he got hold of the sensation, he says his whole mind completely changed. He knew the difference between concentration and vipassana meditation. Wow. You see, bodily sensations. Which brings us to another point. Bodily sensations is the key to Kayanapasana. There are many ways to watch sitting and touching. The traditional way which I was taught, you watch sitting and then you go on to touch points. Slowly you increase the number of touch points. But basically it's awareness of the bodily sensations. Sitting, touching, the first one is the buttocks. Sitting, touching, and after that, you may increase the touch points to your hands, to your chest, to your lips, to your eyelids, and so on. When the mind has more objects to watch, it becomes more interested, and it goes deeper into the sensations. But you do it in a systematic way rather than a random way. Eventually, the sensations become very strong. Then you don't have to go sitting, touching, sitting, touching. You just watch the most dominant sensation. And from there, it becomes strong and it becomes obvious, dominant. Then you just go in and watch the sensation. So sitting, touching is basically watching the sensations. Sometimes it may be different parts, so one main part doesn't matter. My usual method for beginners is to scan. Because you're trying to build up sensitivity of the body. Move up, down, and where there are sensations, you stop and watch them. When they disappear, you go on scanning again. This is a bit like the Goenka method. Goenka method also does scanning. The difference here is I stop when the sensation is strong. You stay there as long as it's there. In Goenka, they don't stop. They make sure they will keep going up and down, up and down. If you stay longer in one sensation and it stays there and develops, concentration develops faster. Why do you need to change? That's my reasoning. But there are many ways of doing it. People do it in different ways. Huh? So generally, I did give it that. Some people do not get the sensations. So there are two things that are involved here that leads you to the Paramattha, the ultimate realities. One is the sensations, the other is the elements. They're basically the same thing. Sensations when you wash, you feel here itchy, there itchy, here hot, there cold, here hard. Generally, you don't see it so clearly. You know the sensations are there and they move and they're like vibrations and so on, they move around. But when you get it clearer, then the elements come into play. That means that in the body, there are three main elements. The earth element, which is manifested as hardness and softness, rigidity or smoothness. Fire element is manifested in hot and cold. Wind element is manifested in tensions, vibrations. The fourth element, water element, this comes under Sukuma Rupa, a subtle materiality. It is not experienced in the body though. It's experienced in the mind though. But people do experience it, especially when connection with the first three. Water element is the cohesive force in material nature. Nature sticks, holds together. Take for example, you see hardness. When you feel hardness, you feel there's a big lump of hardness there. One lump. Very tight together. The hardness itself is the earth element. The seeing it as a whole lump is the water element. Sometimes when you can see the weak point of the water element, it's being very fluid. No? That means it flows. And to the extent it becomes scattered, powdery. This is a water element. But beginning, you take note of these elements, three elements, and you observe it as a process. Generally, if you see the process of sensations clear, the elements will come into view. Sometimes people concentrate on just the hardness or the tension, but they don't see the process. Then you don't get into the conditioning of the element. because you don't get into the actual reality of the element. Yes. Sometimes you see the process, the vibrations, the sensations, but you get stuck there. So you are trained to watch more clearly the characters of the element. Sometimes people hold on to the elements. I just watch hardness here, hardness there. And they don't see change, much change. Then they also get stuck. You said the person not to progress. Take for example, some people know, especially those that do in and out breath. And in and out breath, they follow the in and out. Do they feel the sensation? Yes, of course they feel the sensations. But they don't see the sensations very clearly. They feel it's soft, it's cool, and so on. At one point here. After that, they keep going into concentration. Why? Because they don't see clear changes. A little bit of changes here and there is not enough to bring you to vipassana. Vipassana, you watch the in-breath, out-breath, you see, finally you see the sensations here, there's many sensations, a lot of prickly feelings passing by. That one is vipassana object. Afterward, it's easier to see the changes here, up, down, this side, that side, round, go. Sometimes even got sound. So that means you proceed development of the object from the sensations to the characteristics of the elements. This would highlight the process of it as a process. For example, you watch rising, falling. Some people are very good rising, falling, rising, falling, rising. I know of a person who can just watch rising, falling for hours. 12 hours. You ask me to do that, I won't sit, I'd rather do walking minutes. So I asked him to describe. He describes a very clear mind, very peaceful mind, but he cannot tell you much about the rising falling. The changes of rising falling. Very good samatha, but not vipassana. That means he didn't really look into the rising falling as a changing process. He didn't see clearly into the characteristics of the elements as they rise and pass away. So for this, you don't just follow, you have to observe. When you observe, it's not one thing. There are many things going on there. Yeah? So this is what we call the rising, falling, and sitting, touching. Then of course, when you do rising, falling, or sitting, touching, after a while, the third object becomes strong, pain. At first, it's only mild pain, each here, each there, ache here, ache there. If they don't disturb you, you can even ignore them. But if they become stronger, then you have to take note of them. Otherwise, you can get disturbed by them, in which case you have aversion, or it may distract you. So usually they are not so strong in the beginning. When you become strong for a while, pain, then it goes away. Because it's still mild. But after a while, they become strong, persistent, and you cannot ignore them. So they have to become your main object, primary object. You put aside your rising and falling, and you stay with the pain mindfully. The key is mindfully. You just don't stay with the pain and concentrate on the pain. You're mindful of the pain. You just concentrate on the pain just becomes so strong that you cannot bear it anymore. Mindful, that means you watch it as a theater, circus. It comes and goes, it runs and so on, so on. And then you must keep your mind peaceful and calm. And so when you're peaceful and calm, then you can observe it properly with mindfulness. Otherwise, you know it, but you don't have mindfulness, so you're disturbed. And so you end up with concentration without mindfulness, concentration with anger, which is worse than no mindfulness, worse than just no object. So when it doesn't go away and your mind gets disturbed, you cannot be mindful anymore. Then, as Sadhu often says, then you pull out your white flag. Yeah. So what you do, surrender for a while, not complete surrender. Just like we said, the rabbit runs away to fight again. So mindfully stretch your legs, release it. And after that, after a few 5 minutes, you better, then you bring it back, no, and then you start again, rising body. So that there's continuity of mindfulness. Yeah? And that's the important thing, continuity of mindfulness. Otherwise, you force the person to sit and don't move. Then there's certain repercussions. One is person gives up meditation. I got better to do it in life. Go out there and have a cup of coffee, a piece of cake. The people here like to go for coffee and cakes. Yeah? Do you? Yes. But nobody likes coffee and cakes better than the Germans. True. Their favorite pastime. So you lose out. So we try to convince them to stay so that they continue the meditation. The second is the die-harders. Even there's so much pain, they just sit there and bite their lips and bite their tongue. Many eventually get through. And others have side effects. After a while, when they watch pain too much, they become frightened of meditation. And finally, they give up also. Generally, I don't encourage too hard like this. But normally, 1 hour is supposed to be chicken feed. Because, for example, in South Asia, Burma and Thailand, they sit on floors. They don't sit on armchairs. Sit on floors. So no problem to them. They don't have so much pain. But people who used to sit on armchairs and all those things, they ask them to sit on the floor, pain, they have to get used to it. Pain sooner or later develops. But what you say, no matter what you say, sitting on the floor, on a posture, sitting posture, definitely is more conducive to mindfulness, concentration, than sitting on an armchair. How many times are you allowed to change? One teacher said, allow you one time. So I asked myself, why not 2 times? Why not 3 times? You say, if we change one time, the sitting is half an hour, half an hour. Not so difficult it is. But for some people, it's still difficult. They're very beginners and they're old and they have joint problems. Yeah. So 2 times. 2 times is how many? 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. 20 minutes is getting embarrassing. Embarrassingly short. But you cannot stand it. Live quietly, nobody notices. And you say, okay, truly I am. Yeah. So, but as long as you continue meditation, it's okay. Sooner or later you get over it. Then the other two objects, thinking and sleepy. This comes under the hindrances. We talk of 5 hindrances, we should talk about in more detail later. First is thinking. Thinking is usually comes with restlessness. There are 2 types of thinking. I'm going to do it very briefly only now because time is getting short. One is on one particular thing. Other is on many things. Yeah. One particular thing, that means you have an issue, unsettled, is bugging you. And it's important you have to at least resolve it temporarily enough for you to practice. The other one is habitual. These are obsessive thinkers. Depending on the extent of habit, if you have to be very persistent in noting the thinking. Not it while you walk, not it while you sit, not it while you're in the toilet, not it before you sleep, not it after you sleep. It's like you have a room full of that, you have to keep sweeping. And after a few days, you should see it becoming less and less. But there's some people, they don't get less. Those are real obsessive thinkers. They want a difficult case. As long as they don't go crazy, they can still continue to try. Sometimes it gets a bit better, but difficult case. Once I managed to overcome obsessive thinking, it needed 3 weeks before he stopped thinking for a longer period of time. More dangerous is those that have one issue in mind. You have really got to resolve the issue. Or at least you can notice and take care of the defilement concerned. You have to note anger, craving, or whatever. The third, of course, is a sleepy. Sleepy, this comes especially in the early morning after food, and then you have to load it as soon as possible energetically. You don't just say sleepy, sleepy, you fall asleep. No, wake up and sleepy, sleep. Sometimes you have to note with your eyes open. You note it many times before it goes off. Note it with mindfulness, note it with energy. Usually you put in enough effort, after a few days, usually it becomes less and it goes off. More difficult to get rid is the restlessness, the thinking. But try, no? Try. You have these basic 6 objects. And you can handle that, then you should have able to have a fairly continuous mindfulness. And with a fairly continuous mindfulness, then other parts of the practice comes into play. I think we stop here tonight. Any questions? Yes, Karen.
Sound.
Oh yes, about the sounds. Oh, it sounds very easy. Sound is, especially in places where there are a lot of sounds. When normally there are very few sounds, they don't bother you. But at times when the sound is strong, you should not hearing. There's a difference between noting sound, and hearing. Hearing refers more to the consciousness. Although sound is the main object involved. When you're not hearing, you keep your awareness to your mind or to the consciousness. If you just thought sound, it may be distracting. You say sound, this sound, that sound. No. It takes you further and further away. Whereas you notice hearing, you are more closer to the reality. Yeah. Why? Because where is the sound? Sound is at the ears, your ear door. Where do you pick up the sound? Your ear door. Can you hear me, Andy? Is there sound from my mouth? You hear the sound in my mouth or sound in your ears? You must hear the sound in your ears, not from my mouth. Right? Unless you're lip reader, you can see how my mouth moves, then you can know I'm talking. But there's not hearing, there's lip reading, eyes. Yeah? So you hear the sound at your ear door. Not hear the bird, I hear the bird there singing. No, you hear the bird at your ears singing. The bird's sound or the song of the bird in your ear, not in the tree. Unless you've got a very long ear, like elephant. No, so that's why we say hearing. And you notice that the ear door comes under salayatana. And then at that time, it's more probably you get the reality object. You see the sound arising and passing away. Not the sound of bird, but sound of somebody. Okay? So you're not hearing when the sound comes. There's a problem sometimes when people try to meditate, the people making a lot of noise. This happens when there's a big group of people. When I first went to Mahasi Center to meditate, I find it difficult to meditate. because there's so many sounds in the room. After a while, it becomes very quiet because people are very intensely concentrating. After a while, it comes again. Because one thing is, a lot of old monks are there, and old men are there. I don't know about old women because we're only the monks. Monks all, men's all, and all sorts of things, no? How to concentrate on all these things. And after that, before the end of the hour, there'll be a lot of sound, ding, ding, dong, dong, ding, ding, dong, dong, with a lot of grandfather's clocks around. And moreover, there's so many other sounds, you know, because Mercy Center is a very busy place. They always work. There's drilling of the well and all sorts of things. Then I started complaining. I did my part in complaining. Sayadaw, very difficult to meditate, so noisy. And so Sayadaw didn't say anything. He just stared into my face. No. Okay, yes, Sayadaw, anything you say, I'm not found it. Well, because it's a matter of your willpower. This should be nothing to you. You're supposed to be a meditator. But for outside Burma, people don't have so much faith. So these things happen. So here in this case, it's not so difficult. It's a very quiet place. And if somebody really make noise, I say, out. Meditate in your room or meditate outside. But in a big center, in a big hall, difficult. So you have to tolerate and you meditate. And you get to use it. You can get used to it. The mind is very powerful. You can change. I know a place where you meditate by the main road. In fact, Penang Meditation Center, beside the main road. The Subang Jaya meditation is in the middle of four main roads, crossroads, all sides. Still, people try to meditate, and they can to some extent when you're determined. So you're not hearing. As your concentration develops on the other object, the sound will begin to recede to the background. Okay. Any other questions? No questions, we come back for metta. What time? What's the time now? 8? 12 minutes past 8. We come back at 10 minutes time. Enough for you to go to the toilet and stretch out a bit. 10 minutes time, 10 minutes around 25. You do the transference of merits and so on, aspirations at the end of the metta session. Okay. Not boring for you. Huh? Boring. No. Boring. No. Because you're hearing for the first time. Some of them hearing many times. Tomorrow we will continue with Kayanupassana, like walking meditation, so on.